And the last presentation, I think the main I don't see where the speaker is, yes, Professor Macaulay. Your main focus was standards, yes. And I totally come from the legal perspective. I can see very much where you're coming from, because all the data that we have can be open, you can see it, you can reuse it, but it's such a mess because you have to copy paste and it's not interoperable. So there's a big, I mean, as far as if you're interested, there's a big project at EU level, it's called LAPSI, I don't know if you've heard about it, that is just about, not only about that, but trying to have the data in interoperable formats, so that indeed we can reuse that data without having to, jiggle with it or spend so much time trying to put it in a different format. So I think you gave different examples, and a very interesting example from my point of view is the fact that we give data to the government, or we give data to private companies, but then we don't really have that information. They don't give it back to us. It's stored there in some sort of database somewhere, and you have to actually request to have that data. Now, from the legal perspective, it seems very interesting to see, do I really have the right to have the private, the data that the company owns, like the shower and whatever the graph was, they created that data. They provide a service to me. So is it really my data, or is it a shared data? That is a very interesting point. Whereas if it's government data like tax return or NHS, that definitely is something that you own, especially very private in the sense that it's about your health, or it's about your tax return. And the consent issue is also a very important one. That is more to do with the law, and I think that there is something to be done in that respect, not only on the standards point of view, and the issue that was raised by the first speaker, but also you, but the standards, and should there be a law saying we should open the debate and try to fix this problem. So on this note, my second role is to open the floor for questions. I hope I stimulated a little debate here in your heads. You already had one comment by a gentleman there. If you could just state your name when you want to speak, and raise your hand so I can know who you are and what you want to say. Yes.
Okay, I'm Chris Liggett from the Met Office. This is not my topic at all, but something you just said. Were you aware that in Norway passed legislation that all tax records are open? So you can look on the internet and find all tax records are open. And you can go and find out how much your neighbours pay in income tax. Who in the room would sign up to that?
I think they also they also offer to do your return for you, so you don't have to go through all the data.
Can I first ask the speakers if they want to reply to my comments or to any points that the other speakers have made, because it's also supposed to be triangular.
Would it not be a good idea to get some questions in?
Yeah, I just wanted to let them have a first right to speak. Okay, first question.
Just strong enough personalities to jump in.
Yes, you.
Chris Parker, Ordnance. So I thought Catherine's talk was very interesting in the mapping of networks and traceability of various products, and very interesting thoughts coming out of that. I wondered whether maybe what's missing from that analysis is the fact that much of these are around who holds the power or the value, and is that something that needs to be mapped out and made transparent as well?
Yeah, so the technique that, sorry, do you want me to answer? Or,
yeah, no, go ahead, yeah, of course, yeah.
So the technique that I've used is called global commodity chain research, and the whole idea about that is actually very much that it actually maps the balance of power across the value chain, and it's one of its fundamental tenets of the research is the imbalance of power, and how you can, basically it's how you describe it, but then how to use open data to help rebalance. Yeah, that would be great.
Any other question? Go quiet now. Yes.
My name is Ron Wardenier. I'm from the Netherlands, and we are providing data from the Dutch provinces. And we had a large debate about the best license to do it. And finally, our government decided to use the Creative Commons public mark for that. But then you have your what do you call it? Well, we create data, but then we put it in the public domain, and then we refrain from the author right?
Yes, copyright.
Authorship.
Yeah.
I never like the word.
Trying to keep timetable.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But I was just wondering, is it possible to refrain from that right because you created it and you can't say no, you didn't?
There are two things. I mean, depending on the law of your country, yes, the law will say you might, the government has copyright in the data you stole.
Copyright, that's it.
Yes, copyright or database rights or whatever intellectual property rights. But the government can say, well, I released that data and say, well, it's free for you, for everybody to use. And Creative Commons is a perfect, not perfect, but most perfect, but perhaps at this stage of development of licensing for people to understand what they can do with the data. If it's totally free, then people can share it, they can manipulate it, don't have to even attribute it to the government, whatever. And even if the law says that you have the copyright, you can decide, to give it to the world for free. So that's, I understand what you're looking for. It's a choice, yeah. Any other questions from you? Yes.
Maybe just a comment. It seems in a number of the presentations, what seems to be coming up is that we're throwing data out openly. So we're using data in a new way, but our business models are all business models. So the corporate world still trying to maximise profit, and not necessarily. And so we're using old corporate models to address new ways of dealing with information. And I think the exciting area where several speakers spoke about really is what are the, or alluded to, is what are the new value models that where, and it's going to be more of an ecosystem rather than a linear take, manufacture, sell. It's going to be more circular models.
Yeah. I mean, Catherine had it in her feedback loop, and that's the thing that makes it completely different. So if you look at Google's market capitalization, right, it's where it is because we have given them all that information.
Yeah.
So the fact that you typed in 3 words and then chose the 5th URL and you repeated it, and everyone did that, that is of more value than the algorithm they use initially to rank the page and put it in. So we have given them that. They have crowdsourced essentially search, and it's the reason they keep kicking Microsoft's butt, because they've got the data and Microsoft doesn't, and we keep supplying them more. And the question is, how do you create so that now forms a data monopoly. Yeah. So how do you then create a market? Because what governments want is a market and competition, because that will lead to more efficiencies. And certainly, having listened to the politicians in this country, it's all about markets for everything. And that's what the transparency and the open data is about. Without openness and everyone having the same information, you can't have no true market. And they fundamentally believe in that. And I think that's, so let's take an example. If, and this is a piece of public disruption I think we should do, could we build a plugin for all the browsers that, aside sending that information to Google or Microsoft or whoever else you use to search, records it in a publicly accessible database? Now there's 3 things. One, someone else could write a search algorithm then and just use it off that public data, and we'd be contributing it as a public good. That's one aspect of it. I think the other aspect is, having seen the data that Google have, I think society might like to reflect on what people look for on the internet. If there was actually such a public database, there would be a lot of introspection.
And the interesting thing there is that, we create more and more value creation happens without monetary exchange in between. And so we are getting a benefit from the search, and we are producing, so we are exchanging with Google, and we keep exchanging with the apps.
Their market cap keeps doing this, so at some point, should they be paying us $25 a month to hold our email? Because they're making so much money from it. Yeah.
We're sent to shop because I'm you. Click on Google. It's 3:20. The next session starts at 3:30. So thank you, thank the speakers, thank Estelle.